At first, nothing seems out of the ordinary. The world follows its predictable rhythm, and most surrender to routine as if it were safe. But there's an invisible point of tension, a sense of dislocation. Something within begins to awaken, a clarity that erodes complacency. It's not hatred nor fear, it's awareness. And when awareness dawns, everything that once seemed natural begins to reveal itself as a performance. Conversations that once filled the silence now sound mechanical. Repeated words, automatic gestures, forced smiles. Each interaction highlights the distance between what is said and what is felt. Empathy remains present, but there's no longer a need to sustain the illusion. The space between people becomes more evident, and the silence, once uncomfortable, becomes a realm of truth. The daily routine reveals itself as an invisible prison. Work, distractions, commitments, consumption, all a web of conformity that keeps most people numb. Awakening demands a break with the trivial. Every conscious choice is a small act of silent rebellion. Every step outside the expected script is a step toward something no one else notices. The world seems the same, but now it's clearer. Discomfort grows when every sincere gesture provokes strangeness in others. Questioning looks, indirect questions, silent comments. But authenticity doesn't seek approval. Every honest word, every gesture without the intention of pleasing, is an act of freedom. Real connection doesn't depend on rituals or masks, and this silent freedom naturally separates those who still live imprisoned from the consciousnesses that are beginning to awaken. And then conscious solitude emerges. Not absence, but the space that opens when lies are no longer necessary. The city continues its rhythm, but there is a point of calm that previously seemed impossible. Between shadows and lights, the essence of what truly matters becomes apparent. Silence ceases to be emptiness, transforming into strength, and the clarity that comes from this awakening becomes power, quiet, firm, and relentless. Over time, you begin to see that almost everything around you is sustained by fear. Fear of being alone, of being forgotten, of not being accepted. People call it love, ambition, purpose, but it's fear in disguise. The system has built a prison that doesn't need bars. It's enough to convince everyone that being equal is safe, and that questioning is dangerous. And almost no one dares to doubt. Conversations become predictable. Opinions are copied. Revolt is rehearsed. Everyone complains about the world, but no one wants to break their own character. It's easier to blame the system than to face the emptiness that arises when you lose the role the system wrote for you. The truth is, most people prefer to live doped up with distractions rather than face their own silence. Then the internal confrontation begins. The mind tries to resist, creating excuses, arguments, fears. Waking up hurts, because every part of you that believed itself free discovers the chains it still carries. True rebellion isn't shouting at the world. It's silencing the inner noise that prevents you from thinking. It's realizing that the prison has always been mental, and that the jailer wears his own face. Old bonds begin to unravel. Friendships that existed for the convenience of custom lose their meaning. Relationships based on control and neediness prove fragile. Those who live a lie can't stand those who choose to be true. Authenticity has a price, and that price is distance. But those who wake up understand. It's better to walk alone than to sleep in company. Clarity doesn't bring immediate peace. It brings lucidity. And lucidity is cold. It shows that almost everything we call life is just reaction. Fear disguised as routine, escape disguised as ambition, conformity scented with success. Deep down, no one wants freedom. They want comfort. But comfort is the soul's anesthesia. And it is at this point that awakening becomes irreversible. When you understand that you will never be able to deceive yourself in the same way again. There comes a time when the mirror stops being just a reflection. It starts looking back at you, and what you see there is neither beautiful nor inspiring. It's raw. It's the part you spent years burying. The anger, the pride, the fear, the desire for control, the guilt, the pleasure and pain. What you call me is just the surface. The rest, what truly moves you, is hidden in the cracks of consciousness. The mind tries to negotiate with the truth. It wants to wake up, but without pain. It wants freedom, but without losing control. But there is no awakening without destruction. For something new to be born, the image you've constructed must die. The shadow, as Jung said, is not evil itself. It is everything you refuse to see. And the more you deny it, the more it governs. Every automatic choice, every unconscious reaction comes from it. The person who faces their own shadow doesn't become better. They become whole. Because they realize that good and evil aren't outside, they're inside. That the true enemy was never the system, nor the people, but their own unconsciousness. It's a slow, brutal, but liberating process. With each layer of lies that falls, the silence grows. And in that silence, something real begins to breathe. Certainties crumble. What was once pride becomes shame. What was once a dream becomes illusion. You begin to understand that almost everything you sought, success, approval, power, was just a plea disguised as love. And when you realize this, something breaks. But it's in this rupture that true power emerges. The feeling of no longer needing to prove anything to anyone. Facing the shadow is the beginning of authenticity. It's the moment you stop being a character and start being human. There's no glory in it. There's silence, discomfort, and clarity. The pain doesn't disappear. It shifts. It stops being something that dominates you and becomes something that reveals you. And then finally, you understand. The light you were always looking for was in the darkness you avoided. When the mind finally quiets, the world seems different. Not because it's changed, but because the filter has broken. What once held you back, opinions, expectations, comparisons, loses its weight. Now there's something different. Nothing has the power to possess you anymore. Clarity doesn't bring immediate happiness. It brings independence. The silence that once frightened you begins to become a refuge. Solitude, which seemed like punishment, becomes a temple. And when you learn to be alone, emptiness transforms into strength. It's there, in the middle of nowhere, that the true you begins to rebuild itself. Not the version the world wanted, but the one that has always been trying to emerge. And little by little you realize, waking up isn't about beating the system. It's about stopping feeding it within yourself. The system survives every time you lie to yourself, every time you run from your feelings, every time you seek acceptance out of fear of being free. When the mind awakens, the matrix collapses from the inside out. And that's why few remain, because it's easier to go to sleep believing you're free than to wake up and realize you never were. But those who awaken, even for a moment, are never the same again. Clarity changes the flavor of things. Routine loses its charm. Consumption loses its meaning. Time gains value. You begin to see that true luxury is peace, that true power is being present, and that true success is not needing applause to exist. This is the point of no return, when the world remains the same, but you don't. And if you've made it this far, it's because something inside you has also begun to awaken. Maybe it's still a whisper, maybe a silent revolt, but it's the beginning. And if this beginning makes sense, then continue. The awakened one is not a channel, it's a reminder, a breach in the matrix for those who still have the courage to see. If you want to walk among those who have chosen truth over illusion, subscribe. The rest of the world is still asleep, but you've already begun to open your eyes. The truth behind your own shadow. There comes a moment when life stops being comfortable and becomes true. When the mask falls, the world doesn't change. It's you who changes. It's not about beliefs, but about what happens when you decide to see what you've always tried to hide from yourself. If this message touched something within you, made you reflect, subscribe to the Awakened One channel and turn on notifications. Here, each video is a mirror, and each reflection, a step toward your own light.